Michael Verney is with us. Michael, good morning to you. How you doing?
How are you, Ger? I'm delighted Owen came up for air there. Jeez, he was going for a long time there.
nearly as long as you went that time that you were doing all those push-ups. What's your plan for lockdown 2.0? Are you doing the 2 hours 2,000 push-ups challenge?
I don't know. Yeah, we might have to come up with something creative. All right, yeah, we'll see. Give me a bit of thinking time for it.
It is a bit different this time because there are going to be games that are going ahead. Some games that I have some doubts about now I want to talk about because we've been in touch this morning with a source close to the Offaly camp, and they've told us that they're a bit surprised by what's happened over the last while. So if you're just coming up to the story at the moment, Michael had it in the paper that Offaly at the moment, according to the HSE, are going to have to essentially give a walk over to Kildare this weekend because a lot of their team have been deemed close contacts. This is very interesting because we've got some more detail on it for you this morning here. So the decision by the HSE to deem all players and backroom staff of the Offaly hurling team is not in line with the GAA guidelines that have been agreed regarding close contacts and casual contacts with the HSE. They're insisting that they're one of the top counties with adhering to COVID protocols. There's one case on the panel after minimal indoor activity. We know that the Offaly hurling panel are all undergoing the GAA's rapid testing programme today. And our source told us if the HSE recommendations stand as they are, they will all have to isolate until next week and therefore cannot fulfil the fixture against Kildare. And our source close to the Offaly camp maintains that those HSE recommendations are not in line with what was agreed with the GAA. So I guess, Michael, we're in a slightly, we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto territory, where people believed in good faith that they were doing the right thing, and now they're being advised that actually that wasn't enough.
Yeah, no, I was very taken aback by this, Ger, just because of the whole self-isolation thing. I've seen in other counties, obviously, there were a certain maybe number of players or a couple of backroom team that were deemed close contacts maybe to a positive. I know in Roscommon at the moment, they've identified a handful of close contacts to the positive case that they have, and those people are self-isolating. But in Offaly, and it seems to be, I don't know, but it depends on nearly who you're talking to within the HSE, that maybe different guidelines are being given out for different cases, depending on who you're talking to. But the fact that they have to self-isolate, like all, what are you talking, probably nearly all 40 of them between players, management and backroom team, just seems, it seems a bit bizarre because it's not in line with anything that we've heard so far. And as well as that, like, they're all going to undergo rapid testing, obviously, today, but time is fairly of essence. Like, if they're being told to self-isolate for 14 days, that's until next Tuesday, I think. So that would mean that they can't play any part at the moment in the game at the weekend. They're obviously going to be tested probably today. They probably have results back tomorrow. But as I said, time is of essence given that the game is on Saturday. So everything looks really up in the air at the moment. I think even just chatting a few lads around the squad, they were very kind of taken aback by the fact that they were all told to self-isolate yesterday. I think a message went into their WhatsApp group yesterday afternoon. And it's not in line with what we've heard going on in other counties at the moment. Like, there's no, and I was chatting to John Kiley last week, the Limerick manager, and he was saying that even if there was a positive test within their squad, the fact that they're all travelling alone to train, and the fact that if anytime they are inside, their buildings are unbelievably well ventilated, they're keeping space from everybody, that the number of close contacts would be very, very small if there was a positive test. So I'm very, very surprised with what I'm hearing from Offaly, and I know they're very, very surprised about it. They were preparing for a championship game on Saturday, and as of now, it looks like they're preparing for a backdoor game in the Christy Ring Cup the week after, when all players will be out of self-isolation. So it's that situation is fairly muddled at the moment.
Yeah, and that's the last thing that everybody needs in terms of getting some confidence that these games are going to happen as they're scheduled to, when it looks, and certainly that's what the Offaly camp are saying, that they adhere to all the protocols, and I've no reason to doubt that. You think of the people involved there, they're high quality individuals who believe in science and who have always kind of set very high standards. So you would assume that they've brought that same standard to bear when it comes to following the protocols, because if you don't, then you're not going to be able to fulfill your fixtures. And look, you would hope that an intervention can be made, and somehow people can get to the very bottom of exactly why in this one case the whole panel has been deemed close contacts. I mean, you know, when you just think about what that would require, they'd basically need to have been getting change in the phone box together.
Yeah, no, it doesn't seem possible, Ger. It really doesn't. Someone got on to me last night actually saying to stay loose, because they're thinking that myself and maybe 20 or 24, 25 ex-players will have to fill the breach, but hopefully that won't happen. I find it it's kind of hard to get your head around. Like, anybody I had said it to would say, is this not what the rapid testing is in place for? People get tested, they come back negative, and they're free to play. But this close contact rule seems to be a bit muddled there at the moment, and I can't understand how everybody associated with the squad has to self-isolate for 14 days at the moment. It doesn't really make sense with everything that we've seen up until this point.
Okay, I want to read you a WhatsApp that we got in from a friend of the show, Johnny Kennedy, who runs the Long Hall pub in New York City in Manhattan. It's a great little boozer, and he's been in touch with us loads over the time, and we know him really well, and he's always had brilliant contributions to make to the show. So a little note regarding the championships going ahead. We can all see both sides of the argument. This year, well beyond all other years, the Irish away from home need this more than ever. 95% of them didn't make it home this summer. Most won't make it home this Christmas. That's going to be a first for a lot of young people. It's very difficult for both the person here and the family at home. So to be able to have championship football and hurling means so much to people all around the world. For us in New York, we all hang in so many different circles, guys and girls from all different counties, so it's constant banter about each other's county. You don't get that at home as much. Then the phone calls home. Generally, parents aren't as good on the phone. You'll get, "Here, I'll put you on to your mother," after 2 minutes talking to dad. I think we all know that. But when you've GAA to talk about, that can result in 2 phone calls a week with the father for some lads. I have a friend from Offaly. He'll speak to his dad about the squad leading up to the game. They'd often chat at half-time and always at full-time. How beautiful is that? After sport, what do many fathers and sons speak about? I can only speak for New York, but let me tell you, it's the loneliest city in the world. There's a lot of single, older Irish people living here with the bars closed and no GAA on. That's a long winter ahead for these people. We want people to be safe and healthy at home and abroad, but please do not underestimate what the GAA Championships will do for loneliness and homesickness. Cheers, boys. Johnny Long Hall. I read the whole thing there, Michael, because ultimately you can make a case that these games should not be going ahead, and I wouldn't hold it against anybody who makes that case. And you can make the case that these games should be going ahead, and on balance, I kind of feel a little bit in that camp, but I completely understand the other side of the argument here as well.
Yeah, because I've goose pimples after you're reading that, Jar, without being smart, because that's what I'm getting from people everywhere as well. Like, we're on a Thursday morning now, and in my head, I'm thinking Laois in Dublin Saturday evening, and then I'm thinking Clare and Limerick on Sunday, and it's building up. The talk is starting to build up, and Thursday, Friday, you're building up towards the game. One of the games happens on Saturday. You're focused on that. Then the next day, you're moving on to the next game, and then you're watching the Sunday game on Sunday evening, and then you're digesting it on Monday, still digesting it on Tuesday, and then you're rolling into the next week and looking forward to the next games. That's what it is for me, and I think that's what it is for a lot of people. It'll be a source of conversation, a source of happiness, a source of frustration, no doubt, because some teams will win and some teams will lose. Some managers will be given out about, some will be praised, players will be given out about, others will be praised. But it's just a massive conversation starter. I know, like, my mother and father back home, we're on a farm. They'd normally be, working all day Saturday and all day Sunday. They have their work scheduled around games on RTE and on TG Catter at the moment. They have all their work done, and then they'd make sure and go and look at the games, just because, I don't know, it's a focal point for the weekend for them. They can't go and play cards in the pub like they normally would. They can't go and meet people like they normally would. The march for my father isn't the same as it normally would be. So games are the things to kind of talk about now. So that's kind of one of his focal points over the weekend, and I think that's the case for an awful lot of people. I do agree with you. I have no issue with anyone that opts out or is concerned or anything like that. Definitely not. But I do think people need games. Like, even Owen went through the list of things going on over the weekend, and it excites you again, and it's a different type of lockdown as a result of that. If there were no GAA games during lockdown, I think it would be a pretty lonely place. So I know I'm looking forward to it, and I hope everything goes ahead. There's going to be little hitches and there's going to be little speed bumps along the way, but just imagine the lead up until Christmas with the hurling All Ireland on the 13th, and I think the football on the 19th or the 20th. It would definitely shorten the winter for us big time.
Yeah, and obviously it's fraught with danger and it's fraught with difficulty, and so you just got to minimise the danger and the difficulty as much as possible so that we can begin the experiment of learning to live with COVID as part of our day-to-day lives, because we haven't done a great job of it up to this. Like, everybody got a little bit relaxed over the last couple of months and went a bit mental, and now we're all getting locked down again because of that. And I don't know, maybe this is, maybe it's completely pointless and maybe it's completely unnecessary, but like I can't see how it's pointless, and I can't see how it's entirely unnecessary. I definitely see the arguments against it, but equally there are some pretty valid arguments for it going ahead. To that point, it feels like one of the biggest games of the year is happening on Sunday, and we haven't really analysed too much about what's likely to happen, because a little bit we don't really know what form Clare and Limerick are in today.
Yeah, it's less about, isn't it? Less about the tactics and the systems, and now it's just more about the game actually happening. It's harder to handle. You don't have anything. It's like in racing terms, it's like a 2-year-old maiden where you haven't seen any of the horses running before. You don't know what you're going to get. You're not really sure what you're going to get on Sunday. But given that it's a Shannonside derby, given that Clare got an awful shellacking off Limerick last year, and Clare are obviously the only team to beat Limerick the year before when they did win the All-Ireland, there's loads of intrigue about it. You have Brian Lohan, obviously Clare legend, taking his first championship game. They're missing a lot of players. I think the 4 starters from the 2013 All-Ireland replay win. They're missing John Conlon, captain, with a cruciate. Colm Galvin is injured as well. He's not on the panel at the moment. Peter Duggan has gone travelling, and Podge Collins is kicking football. So it's going to be definitely a new look Clare squad, and they're going into Lions Den against a Limerick side who are, exactly what you're going to get from Limerick. Nearly every day they go out, you're going to get a really, really high level performance. You're going to get an 8 out of 10 most days they go out. They have a couple of question marks over them too. The fullback Mike Casey's out with a cruciate, and Richie English is only on the way back. So they're missing, number 3 and number 4, and they're specialist positions in the full back line. So to be worries about, whether they're ready-made replacements come in there. It's a brilliant game. It's a brilliant game to start off. For Clare, it's an absolute nightmare game to start off. I find it very hard to get away from Limerick in this one, and you'd be looking at then the possibility of a Limerick and Tipperary Munster semi-final on Halloween weekend, which would be absolutely unbelievable. The reigning Munster and League champions coming up against the All-Ireland champions. And just on the Clare and Limerick game, I think a lot of people have forgotten this is basically a de facto league final as well. So it's a Munster quarter-final doubling up as a league final. They both finished top of their groups in 1A and 1B. So I don't think there'll be much celebrating a league title at the weekend, but the winner will end up league champions.
Tony Kelly was on the show this week, and he's doing a lot of media this week, Michael. And you do get a sense from Clare that they're very well aware of the fact that Limerick are not only favourites for this game, but are quite comfortable favourites, I understand, given the injuries that you mentioned, and given how a lot of people will have them picked to take Liam McCarthy back home to Limerick once again this year. That has to be a driving factor for someone like Brian Lohan, for a team that still has a lot of that experience from 2013.
Well, it's like this. Like Brian Lohan never lay down as a player, and I'm sure any side that he's on the sideline with are definitely not going to lay down. But it is going to be a new look kind of a Clare team, looking like Eibhear Quilligan to be in goals, and Liam Corrie will come into the full back line. They'd both be championship debutants, it'd both be their first starts anyway. Looking like Tony Kelly and David McInerney midfield. Aaron Shanaher and Aaron Cunningham. Aaron Cunningham was away for the last 2 years. They look like they're going to come into the full forward line. Interesting one for Aaron Cunningham as well. His dad, Alan, is a really, really highly respected coach, and he's in with Limerick. So what the breakfast table and dinner table discussion would be like at the Cunningham household this week would be fairly interesting. I was chatting to Aaron earlier on this year, and I asked him, he was away for the last 2 years travelling, and I said, with your dad being involved in Limerick, does that make you support Limerick? And he just, he didn't even fudge it at all. He just said, in no way does that make me support Limerick. If anything, it goes the other way. So
he said they wouldn't be talking hurling this week. I can't believe it. What is breakfast actually like for that family? Like, who's going to blink first?
Yeah, and I'd say Aaron's mother, is put in a fairly awkward position at the breakfast and dinner table there as well. But they said they don't talk about hurling at all. And Aaron said as well that his dad was probably delighted in a way to have that he was away for the last couple of years, just so that there was no awkwardness or anything like that, and that he wasn't plotting against his son. But it's an interesting, it's another little kind of a layer of intrigue to that game. It's very hard to get away from who Clare are missing, though. Like, it's one thing having those good lads like Aaron Shannon or Aaron Cunningham to come in, but the fact that those guys won't be on the bench now to bolster the game, bolster their kind of charge with 15 or 20 minutes to go, you'd imagine that takes away a lot from Clare. As well as that, when you have a new manager coming in, Brian Lohan is in that situation, Kieran Kingston, and we just say like Shane O'Neill, Liam Cattler in that situation as well. It's in a very difficult position to be coming in, to have had a squad, we'll say, from last November to March, and just be learning about your squad in your first year, and then not have them for 6 months. I'm not saying you can't trust players, but you don't know what they're going to do within that time off. They don't necessarily know the style of play that you're trying to develop. That would all be cultivated on the training pitch. Whereas you look at a Davy Fitz maybe in Wexford, they all know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Brian Cody then in Kilkenny, they know what they're supposed to be doing. John Kiley in Limerick as well. So I definitely think managers who have been there for a couple of years and have all those systems in play and make sure that things run really, really smoothly, even when they're not training, I definitely think they have a massive advantage coming into the weekend. So I do think the deck is definitely stacked against Brian Lohan, and I believe they've conceded 10 goals in their last two challenge games as well. They took a fair beating from Kilkenny a couple of weekends ago. So they're definitely up against it. But you will be expecting a big, at least a big hour from them at the weekend. And I think Limerick know that Clare aren't going to roll over against them. But very, very hard to see Limerick not coming away with this. Probably 5 or 6 or more. I'd say.
6 is the spread, all right. So I was kind of surprised by it, and Clare are massive outsiders, 4-1 in a 2-horse race in a sport, particularly at this time of year, where some wild stuff can happen.
Yeah, no, going back to the players that they're missing 4 All-Stars. They're missing John Conlon, who was, should have been nominated for Hurler of the Year 2 years ago. Peter Duggan, who was an All-Star 2 years ago. Colin Galvin, who's brilliant midfielder, brilliant playmaker, brilliant sweeper. He was an All-Star in 13. And Podge Collins was an All-Star in 13 and nominated for Hurler of the Year. So when you put that down, there's going to be probably a lot of new faces around. There's still a lot of old faces that have an awful lot to offer. But Limerick could easily, Clare could easily score, 16 or 17 points, but Limerick could put up a 222, 223. They create an unbelievably high amount of chances, and they're one of these teams. I was looking at them in January and even February earlier on this year. They play this really high risk kind of a game, high risk possession game, playing triangles almost, creating space, and there's an awful lot of touches, and it requires really, really slick stick work. But they were able to pull it off in January and February earlier on this year. They won last year's league, obviously, as well, and are in the league final this weekend based on what they've done in kind of tough conditions. So they're perfectly suited to any time of the year. They really are a team for any season, and they're going to be very, very hard stopped at the weekend. But again, there's doubts over, this time of the year, you're going to get 10 or 11 frees. We're not even sure who's hitting frees for Clare at the moment.
Yeah.
Whereas we know Aaron Gillette will be hitting them for Limerick. There's so many more doubts over Clare this weekend.
Okay, fair enough. That all makes sense. Michael, it is good to actually talk about the match. I think all our conversations are going to have a set amount of time for COVID. Hopefully it'll be at the end, and a set amount of time for talking about the match. But it's great to be able to talk about matches as well. Great to have you with us this morning. Thanks a million.
No bother, Jared. No.
Enjoy the game at the weekend. It's Michael Verney from the Independent talking to us about the match at the weekend.